to call to order our regular meeting for the Rockingham County Board of Elections. I'd like to welcome those of you who chose to be with us this evening. This is a change from early morning. And I also would like to welcome those of you who choose to be with us from the comfort of your homes. So I would like for us to please stand. And Ms. Brady, would you like to lead us in our pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And will you please remain standing for our invocation, Pastor Donald Delancey, Resurrection Life Church in Eden.
I would like to thank the board for opening your meeting and seeking the guidance of God. I ask for strength and courage to follow the guidance. I ask for the wisdom and understanding of God to cover each of you, to stand for the people and the rule of law. I ask for protection upon every voting station, that every voting station be filled with integrity. Finally, may God's grace and peace rest upon all of you. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
You may be seated, and thank you once again, Pastor Donald Delancey from Resurrection Life Church in Eden. Conversation, guys. At this time, I would like to ask for the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second. It has been moved and seconded that we approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those who oppose signify by saying nay. The motion carries. At this time, I would like to have a motion for the approval of the board minutes for September 19th, 2023 regular meeting minutes.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve the board minutes for the September 19th, 2023 regular meeting.
I second.
Okay, it has been moved and properly second that we approve the minutes for September 19th, 2023 regular meeting minutes. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. You have approved the minutes. At this time, I would like to have Paula read the comments for public comments, please.
Okay, the public comment period shall be for the purpose of allowing members of the public to present any matter pertaining to Board of Elections business or items on the Board of Elections agenda. Remarks shall be addressed directly to the Board of Elections and not to staff, the audience, or media. The chair shall open the public comment period. Any speaker who wishes to speak shall approach the podium and not speak from his or her seat. Each speaker shall clearly state his or her name and physical address when he or she approaches the podium. Each speaker shall be allotted 3 minutes.
Thank you, Paula. We have 3 people who have, 2 people who have signed up, and we have an email. The first person is Diane Parnell. Welcome.
Thank you. Madam Chair and board members, thank you for letting me come speak with you. I'm Diane Parnell. I live at 220 Woodland Drive, and this is a pleasure having a board that you can come and speak with. You know that I've been here twice before, and I was encouraging you to set policy. Some of the issues that we had at the last time we had an election. And I know that I'm speaking as a Republican Party chairman. It's not necessarily the opposing party, it's my own party. That I do want to see some decorum. I realize you can't legislate decorum and kindness, and I encourage you to be more stringent in the wording of what you're putting forth. For instance, we've always been told before, if you go out and you put up a tent, you're going to share it. If you say you may need to share it, I am not easily intimidated. I may or may not share my tent, depending on the actions of the people. But if you say to me, you must share that tent, if you put that tent up, then you set a policy. You have the power to set the policy. We will follow that policy. I like the idea of the chief judge being able to handle issues that happen outside. I think that that would give them a good balance of keeping control of what's happening there. I hope you'll consider that. I did check with our NCGOP attorney to ask if there are any other counties that have these same issues, or was this anything that could not be done to, for instance, if someone campaigning outside electioneering and did not behave themselves, so to speak, could the chief judge ask them to leave? And he said absolutely, that they could. Now, I'm assuming that this is the gentleman that was handling elections, so I'm assuming that y'all have the same thing. But unfortunately, it has come a time. We see this all over America, not just today or this election, that we have to set the rules and we have to adhere to those rules and enforce them. So thank you for letting me be here tonight.
Thank you. Next person is Ann Brady. Welcome.
Any chance we could read the email first and then let me talk?
It's fine.
Okay.
I'd rather come.
Okay. All right, the email is from Tamar Lipscomb, Vice Chair or the Acting Chair of the Rockingham County Democratic Party. After reviewing the Rockingham County Board of Elections October agenda, it appears there has been some discussion regarding electioneering and expectations at the polls. However, the Rockingham County Democratic Party was not made aware and has not been included in any discussions as indicated on your agenda, item number 9. We have not had adequate time to work within our party to process the information. Therefore, we are not in agreement with the items proposed. So thank you, and she also attaches the board's packet.
Thank you. And now Ann Brady. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me here. My name is Ann Brady. I live on Highway 65, Rockingham County, Reidsville. I'm also a member of the executive board for the Rockingham County Democratic Party. You just listened to the correspondence from our current acting chair, who was not able to come tonight. She notes that we were unaware of any discussions about electioneering rules or mandates or suggestions, whatever they are, until we found it posted on the website yesterday evening. We therefore request the time for our party to process and respond to the suggested rules. I repeat what Ms. Lipscomb said, our party does not concur with the suggestions as written. And just to make it clear, part of what's on the website reads, to address rising concerns over activity occurring in or around areas adjacent to statutorily defined buffer zones at each polling place, the Rockingham County Board of Elections, the Rockingham County Democratic Party, the Rockingham County Republican Party, and the Rockingham County Libertarian Party mutually have agreed upon the following principles. We have never been consulted. We didn't even know this was happening. So this is not right. Honestly, I agree with you totally. We need some changes. We need some things to happen. What I don't want is to be blindsided and not have a chance to process. There's a lot of information in here. There's almost 20 pages of information attached. We need time as our party to process this. And I personally found some of the suggestions very appropriate. Some were useful. Some I think we're doing anyway. And some, frankly, were intrusive, in my opinion. And that's me speaking. We haven't had time as a party to do it. So I just request that any action by the Board of Elections be postponed till all the parties involved have a chance to process and weigh in. So if the goal is to develop rules jointly between the political parties and the Board of Elections, and I think that's an admirable goal, we just want to be included in the discussions and not have anything mandated until we have that opportunity.
3 minutes.
Thank you very much.
May I ask Ms. Brady a question? Sure. Ms. Brady, where did you find that information at? What, did you find it?
It's on the website.
On our website?
Yes.
Okay,
If you go, there's agenda and then there's packet.
Yeah.
So if you go to packet, start on
Gotcha.
page 60, and there's almost 20 pages, including what the 2 committees did and so forth.
thank you. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't.
We just happened to find it yesterday.
Yeah, I just was curious as to whether it was some, on another website or somewhere else.
No, it's on your website.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, we're moving on to item number 7, photo ID training. Member Schofield.
Yes, I'd like to start the discussion, but I think we need to talk about it a little bit as well. I was really concerned when I got the list from the state board of the voter ID exception form and found that there was 15 items for which a person can file.
Next item.
Pardon?
That's the next item. The exception for
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Never mind. I just want to make sure that we're doing the photo ID training. The exception form is the next
Okay,
item.
okay.
Okay. You go ahead. I'm
Well,
sorry.
it's related to the same subject.
Okay.
Photo ID for our staff is going to be a challenge because number one, we've never had it in my lifetime, which is a pretty long lifetime, and we haven't experienced it. Our employees, our staff are going to have to look at a photo, and I have some concerns because some of us have dyed our hair, and some of us have lost our hair, and one thing and another, so we're going to look different from what we may have done 8 years ago when we got our driver's license renewed. So I'm just throwing out for Paula, and I'm sure that she is very much aware of this and probably has been taking some steps, and I think it'd be helpful for us to talk about some of the things that we have done to help the staff recognize and be able to use the photo ID as an identification of the individual. So that was the only comment I wanted to make on that. I do have some concerns about what we're exposing our staff to.
In the board's packet, I put a presentation in there. It's several pages that has been shared with the precinct officials. We have had training with them extensively. Each precinct had separate trainings, and that was actually directed by their chief judges, and staff was present as well. And all of this information on what they're looking for was discussed. Now, with the regulation or what we're being told the requirements are is a reasonable resemblance. We know that the driver's license now can be up to 8 years, and I have changed a lot in 8 years, but reasonable resemblance is the only thing that we can do this time. If the address is different, there's nothing we can do about that. Their name does need to be similar. If the person is registered, let's say as Mary Jane Smith, but on her driver's license, she's Marilyn James Smith, that's similar. So we're to accept it. If she's Jane Smith and she's Mary Jane Smith on her driver's license, we're supposed to accept it. As long as there is something similar. Now, if someone comes along, it's Mary Jane Smith, and the driver's license says Catherine Schwarzkopf or something. That's not similar. That's when we would question whether that is the same person. If you will look, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at this, but when they're looking at it and you get to the area of reasonable resemblance, what they're looking at is what they call ears. It's the expiration date, acceptable ID, and we have a list of the acceptable IDs that we can accept. And we have them on our wall over there, but we also have those at the check-in stations. The reasonable resemblance, and then substantial equivalence, which is the name similarity. And it says, I recently got a voter ID card from the BOE, but had cosmetic changes to my appearance. Will I need to get a new card? Election workers are looking to see if the photo reasonably resembles the voter. They are trying to understand that appearances can change over time. Even if there is an apparent discrepancy in resemblance, the voter will still be allowed to vote a regular ballot unless the judges of election at the polling place unanimously agree that the photo does not reasonably resemble the voter, in which case the voter can vote a provisional ballot. So we have to trust that 3 judges will make the right decision. The only thing they can look at, I know if you put on weight or you lose weight, it changes your facial consistency or the way it's shaped. But there are things that you can look at that are similar. Eyes look the same. Your nose looks the same. The shape of your mouth. You can go get Botox and, get all that done, remove your wrinkles, but you've got it. The only thing we're allowed to do this election is reasonable resemblance. And I don't know, I know you have concerns about that. Our precinct officials have concerns, and they're a little nervous going into this election because next year is going to be a little bit more stringent. But this election is reasonable resemblance. I know that doesn't answer your question.
It does. The thing that we have going forward is going to be a municipal election. It's going to be less votes probably than we would have in a general election. And it's new.
It is. I'm actually glad that this was implemented during the municipal election rather than a general election. So it's kind of like a test run to see how it's going to go. Is it going to slow down the process? Yes. But we still have to follow the regulations that we're given, and they will be followed. So.
Okay. Any other board members have a question for Paul? Okay, we ready to move on then to provisional ballot photo ID exception form?
The exception form is really where my burr is under my saddle, because we've got 15 things that are listed as exceptions. Some of them are understandable. Some of them are other, which if I read the instructions from the state board, we really can't challenge it unless we know it's a lie. It's a falsehood, they call it, but a lie. And how in the world are you going to go about that if someone has used one of, and there's no limit on the other that they could apply. I think that's something we'll have to look at. I think that's something we'll have to discuss as a board. And I think that the big thing is we really do have fairly detailed, 13 pages of instructions from the state board of what we gotta do, which basically says accept whatever comes at you unless you can prove they're lying. You know, if they said the dog ate my ID card, well, if we know they don't have a dog, that might be a good reason to question it, you know? Because they said my dog, they didn't say the neighbor's dog. So, you know, there's a few that we're gonna be able to catch like that, but let's just hope there isn't very many people out there with gamesmanship that's gonna try to do that. Because I don't know we've got any choice. My understanding is we've got to follow the memorandum number 3, which gives us detailed 13 pages of instructions. And all of them are going to have to be handled as provisional ballots, which means some of you guys are going to have to stay some long hours if we have 10,000 people to sign up and say, I don't want to show my ID. That's all, just a feeling.
Any other comments? Thank you, Member Schofield, for sharing. We'll move on to item number 9, electioneering area discussion. Paula?
Okay. The committees were appointed by the chair after the last board meeting, and the 2 committees met. And in your packet, the first one was what the staff from the Board of Elections had actually written up that they would like to see possibly in the guidelines. The next page, which says Rockingham County Board of Elections electioneering area rules and guidelines, is 1 page. Those were the suggested guidelines by Member Cole and Member Schofield, which was 1 committee. And then the next 2 pages was written by the 2nd committee, which is Secretary Totten and Member Hampton. And then I included the number memo 2022-12, Member Hampton actually made reference to, as well as he found the guidelines for campaign volunteers and electioneers at the polling place from Forsyth County. And he's also updated his 2-pager information, or 2-page information, and that is at your seats. I received that as well. And let me see if I've got any extra copies here.
Okay, can I ask you a question? The updated one still has 11 points? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
But, I mean, I will let you know, I have called and emailed several counties throughout the state. I've contacted the State Board of Elections for the past couple of years that I've been here, because this has been an issue that has come up. And when I told them we had a corral, they had never heard of a corral. When I explained the corral, they said, nobody does that. They'd never heard of it. And I said, well, I had never experienced it until I come to Rockingham. In Caswell, you have your buffer zones marked with tape, and you know not to cross that line. But you have that open space that's not within that area. I don't know, it's what I've been told, it's always been that way, and you're not gonna change it. And Okay,
Who's they? Excuse me.
staff, voters,
Let me,
electioneers.
let me say something. You mentioned that last meeting. And the fact is, the statute requires that
A
the board
buffer
of
zone.
elections
Yes,
create a buffer zone, but also an area adjacent to the buffer zone for election activities. So whether we call it a corral or
or what?
area adjacent to the buffer
Yeah.
zone,
Our
it's
corral
supposed
is
to be
the
there.
buffer zone.
Yeah, but but talking to other directors, they said as long as they're not in that area, you know, they're okay. But whatever this board wants to do, I know what you're saying. If it's designated, that's where they need to be.
Well, no, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay,
What I'm saying is we're required to identify that area. The problem is the statutes don't say that people have to stay in that area.
and that's the key.
And the statutes do not give us any authority to legislate what goes on in that area. Let me say something. In working to develop these basically voluntary principles, we understood that some people thought that we should mandate what should happen, that you should do this or do that. We have no authority to do that. And as sure as we try to do that, we will be sued for violating somebody's rights, one way or the other, constitutional, statutory, we'll be sued. We don't want to be sued. More importantly, we don't want to engender hard feelings with our constituents, all of the voters in this county. So we agree with you that there must be some rules. The problem is we have no way of enforcing them. If, for example, we tell people you have to share your tent with everybody, that tent is personal property. How do we enforce it? So the point is that we would like to basically, what our intent was, to basically get parties to act cooperatively to manage conduct in those areas. Although we agreed, the stronger the language, the better off we thought everything would be, but we just don't have the authority to do it. This discussion started last month in our last meeting. And I apologize to you that the draft that you all saw had that language in it. The motion or the committee report, which I assume we will have an opportunity to vote on shortly, has removed that language and says the Rockingham County Board of Elections and participating political parties and candidates agree upon the following. So it's up to you. It's always been, our position has always been that it's up to the individual parties and the individual candidates to participate in this. The authority of the judge is unquestioned, and we make it plain in this report that we do not intend to expand or contract the judge's authority at all. But we still have the question of what do you do? If you don't, if there's an incident, well, for example, I think it was last election cycle, we had one person bring a dog, another person brought a dog, one person was asked to move the dog, that person agreed, the other person disagreed. What do? We're trying to short circuit all of that. So if people don't agree, the question becomes, what happens? Do we shift things back to the judge, who basically has to decide whether to call the police, and we don't want law enforcement at our polling places. That's just where I think most of us are. So, Madam Chair, at this point, I think everybody's had an opportunity to review these 11 principles, we are calling them. And I would basically move that the board accept this report as the report of the committee on.
Okay, the chair has, before you do that, the chair has a question about whether all the parties have come together and had a discussion with you guys.
No.
Okay, so
We cannot do that.
why was it put in here? that first?
It's been because that was intended to indicate what we intended, what we wanted as an end result, yes.
Madam Chair, before we get to the motion, can we have some other general discussion first? I would like to, is that acceptable? We haven't had a second yet, so, but I would like to bring up a couple of points. My understanding of our instructions were that each of the two committees were to review the information, take Paula's information as something we could follow,
Right.
take the complaint that we had on this issue that came from Ms. Parnell and use that as a kind of a basis to see what we felt like would be appropriate. Then the next step was going to be to get these two back together and try to homogenize them, which because of the time factor, we're meeting today and we're going to have early voting starting next week, Thursday.
Thursday.
And Paula hasn't had an opportunity to, what my vision was for this is to come up and say, these are the things I think we ought to do, these are things that's not legal, that we can't do, etc. And then we would go through that, and then the next step would be to get buy-in from the Republican and Democrat and Libertarian parties, not asking their approval, but at least hearing what their concerns were.
Thank you.
And so I think we've gotten ahead of our process. And I certainly empathize with the comments that's been made that you didn't know the information. Well, what I had, my understanding, and I think Nelson's as well when we were going to do this, was that we had an orderly process, but we were jammed in here with trying to get at least something for Paula to, there's some of them that's just very clear that we ought to do. And
May I interject something there? This list of suggestions or guidelines are all based on compliance with the general statutes regarding this particular thing. So that's not an issue, in my opinion, as far as the legality of it or the compliance part of it. So we can move on from that and look at what the suggestions are. But each of these have been reviewed with the general statutes as far as what our responsibilities can and cannot do.
From both committees?
And
From both committee reports, are you saying?
It's a compilation of both.
That you've gone together and Paula has had time to
And I
go
have,
through and read them and put them in order or add to or take from, that sort of thing, Paula?
Right.
but I don't mean to insult our director, but that's not her decision. It's ours.
But
No,
did
there's
you
no
all?
but. Listen.
Yeah, there is a but.
Okay.
The but is, when you made the motion, I thought the motion said for Paula to go back and look at,
The motion's
What you all-
quoted in your documents. Read it.
show me where it is.
while he's finding that, I'd like to make one observation. I went through and compared these, and you're right, we touch on all the incidences, but there's some significant difference in the tone. In one case, for example, it says, and I'm gonna pick one, item number 7, P7, animals except service dogs are not allowed. Then it goes on to say that an emotional animal does not qualify. You know, we don't get into other animals. You know, the concern I have is that isn't specific. What if someone wanted to bring a cat?
Or a mule.
Or a mule? Or what if the Republicans want to bring their elephant?
What about a skunk?
What about if the Republicans want to bring their elephant? Or the Democrats want to bring a donkey? or whatever the libertarian is.
If that donkey is
I
a
think-
circus
I think-
animal, then.
I think it does clearly state, in both of them that service animals are required by law. Now, addressing the question that Thurman brought up, we don't have any laws to back us up. We're making laws. Well, we are. We honestly are making rules because it hasn't come up yet. It hasn't. Some of these things have not come up. The only one that I could find was the one on service animal. Now, there's a federal law that says you've got to allow service animals, if they're properly trained and if they're properly marked, to be allowed there. So we certainly have the right to go beyond that. There's no law against it to say, what do we call it? Emotional support animals are not permitted. So I think we do have the right to
But that's what
make
we're
those.
saying.
Pardon?
That's exactly what we're saying.
Are you saying we should allow support animals?
No. I'm saying
Okay.
that there is no law when you read the service animal requirement. It doesn't say anything about service animals not being allowed. We could allow it if we wanted to. If we wanted someone to bring their favorite cat. But I think we need to make it very clear that that's not what we want in this environment. Our job as a board is to establish, for the purpose of the electors, those who are coming to elect people, to make it as convenient for them as we can. And we certainly need to have for the candidates, because we wouldn't have anybody to be voting if we didn't have candidates. So we got to allow the candidates, either directly or through their individuals, to have a place to participate.
The guidelines are for the electioneering people, not the voters.
Right, but I'm saying we have the
Pertains
right
to our
to make
election year.
rules and spell them out, unless we're going to violate a law that says we can't.
We're not.
Just the absence of the law doesn't mean we can't set up regulations, is my understanding, Paula, and I think that's what you had indicated to us from the state board.
So are you objecting to this?
No, I'm objecting because in some cases we're saying that it's not allowed. In other cases, we said it's not recommended, or using some of the other terminology that aren't as specific.
So
And I think we need to be.
Terminology is how it's.
Yeah, I think it needs to be. The only one out of this that isn't noted specifically is parking, P9, and I think that only place we really have an issue on parking is here. And I think we need to be very specific that we're talking about here.
Well, I disagree.
All right.
I usually visit the western precincts, and there are issues with parking.
It's issues
It
everywhere.
is there, in Weston. Well,
Okay.
actually, it's a little church, I think.
We cannot write anything or propose anything where we attempt to identify specific problems with each precinct. We have to take a more or less general approach.
I understand. The other one that I really agree.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, the one I really agree on is, and we did not have it in ours, and you guys do, and that is the incident management, and that is that the chief judge is really the one that's gonna have to at least have the initial contact. Now, that chief judge is gonna have the ability to pass that on, not necessarily, I mean, if they wanna have somebody arrested, or they wanna get somebody in with cooler heads and get the party involved or the candidates involved, if there are people who are misbehaving. But I agree that statement needs to be spelled out in any of our agreement, and they ought to be the first thing. I don't know.
So you don't have an issue with the wording on that one?
Well, it's too wordy for me. I'm now shall not.
Less is more.
Madam Chair,
Less is more.
the motions on pages 2 and 3 of last month's minutes.
The motion is what?
Page 2 and 3 of the packet that we have.
Can we entertain discussion from the floor? Can we entertain discussion from the floor?
I think that we can, but it's up to the board. It's up to the board if they want to.
Make a motion to that effect.
And I make a motion that we entertain discussion from the floor.
Second.
All right, it has been moved and properly second that we entertain motions from the floor. Is there any discussion?
That we entertain motions from the floor.
Discussion from the floor.
That's fine.
I think that's appropriate. I think the only problem is that could be setting a precedent of other discussions that we might not have people here as qualified as these two individuals is to address this.
I think circumstances going to depend on what action we
I
take.
think you're right.
I don't think that would set a precedent, so.
Okay, good.
Okay, the motion.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and properly second that we entertain a discussion with members from the floor. No discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. We will entertain discussion from the floor.
Am I on?
Whoever.
Want me to go first?
Sure.
Again, what I said was, I think the idea of us getting together and coming up with some ideas is good. I know there have been misbehaviors on both parties, and I like the idea of an agreement by the parties on what we want there. I mean, I can go down this list and tell you, we've had some very quick discussion with some of our e-board on some of these items. Good behavior, absolutely, you know. Yes, we all need to behave.
Excuse me a minute, can you identify by the
P1.
P1, okay?
P1 says
As
good
you're
behavior.
speaking to the issue, so.
Yeah, and I'm speaking for Ann Brady, not necessarily for the whole Democratic Party, because we
Well,
have a whole
Diane
party.
can't speak for the whole
I know.
Republican Party either, but
Yeah, okay.
you're both very involved.
We're expected to demonstrate good behavior. I'm fine with that one. We have to stay in the right area. We know that, and that's number P2, election activity. Participant list, why? Somebody tell me what that's about.
Because if anything happens, if there is an incident, having a list, having the name tags and the list of who those people are representing makes it easier for the judge or whoever is out there to notify the party or the police of this person is being disrupted.
Okay, it says prior to election day, and I'll just tell you, I spend a lot of time, as you do, behind the chains. And I'm sure you do the same thing. You go in and you kind of assess the situation, and there's a lot of people there. You're going to move to another site. I don't need to be restricted. Or my sister comes in town, she says, I'd like to help out with the candidate I'm working for. Oh, you're not on a list the day before, you can't help.
We're not gonna police your list.
Well, it says we're supposed to present that at least a day ahead. I have a problem with that. May I provide an alternate suggestion? If you want to know who's there, I don't mind having my name, Ann Brady, but I'm not sure, because I might work for different candidates at different times, that I want to really identify, here's the whole list, you know, I'll start with Biden and go on down the whole list, whatever. I'll put my name on, I don't mind that. Please supply name tags so that people that don't bring them can put on a hello, my name is. And then if you want a sign-in sheet, I don't have a problem with that. We could sign in when we get there, so you know who's out there. But give us the opportunity without a day's notice to move between different sites. That's my input on the list. What do you
Well,
think?
let me just, what it says is that candidates and campaigns are encouraged to develop and
Okay.
make available to the Board of Election.
I'm just going to tell you we won't do it. It's
Well, that's-
encouraged, okay.
And you have that right. I'm just talking about the language that's actually there. There's no requirement that you do this the day
Okay.
before the election. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, and then my suggestion would be, if you want to know who's there, put a sign-in sheet out of that would be a lot more manageable and much more likely that we would be able to comply. That's just an idea. Tents, that's great, and I will say, a lot of times I've been there and you've put up a tent, and you've always invited me under when the sun was, that's always happened, and I like seeing it in writing. I think that's nice that we would share. Ditto with tables. No more than 2 tables. The only thing that comes to mind on that is the first 2 tables, So, you know, 2 of your people come and then we come with a table, we can't have one. It says we can share. That's hard to do sometimes, but we'll manage it. We'll manage it. I'll also mention on tables that here at Wentworth, 2 tables may be too many for that space. But if you're at the agriculture center, you got all that space. If everybody wanted to bring their own table, it wouldn't be a problem.
Has Paula, have you relayed to them how you're gonna have it set up out here?
No, they have not, just unless they heard it in the board meeting. No.
Do you want to share that at this time? And that way, that would provide the opportunity for more than 2 tables?
Yes, I can, if y'all want me to. But it doesn't matter. I mean, we could do, I can show them after the meeting.
Okay.
Would
I
that
just
work
think
for you?
tables, chairs, tents, to say that they cannot interfere with electioneering and so forth would be the language I'd like to see. Because some places could have multiple tables, some might not be able to take any.
I think part of the issue is that when you get so many tables and chairs and tents, you kind of eliminate potential space for other people, and you've got all the chairs.
You could get it off of the front line. I mean, I'm thinking when you're over at the at the agriculture center, you know, you're lined up here, everybody comes in that way anyway. Behind you, each candidate could have their own table. It isn't gonna bother anybody. There's plenty of room, but there isn't here. You know, so I would just encourage language that would encourage to be respectful of the space and to share when appropriate. Something to that effect. The food, why in the world can't we eat a sandwich? That one just has me baffled. And snacks, and who's gonna define, you know, I can eat a whole giant donut that has stuff falling down, but I can't have a little sandwich there? I don't get it. I mean, that one just has me baffled. Can you help me?
Yes, I can explain that. And
Okay.
you go ahead and then I'll go back and tell you why most of these I brought up.
Okay.
Is that good with everyone?
I mean, we can do it item by item, might be easier.
Okay. Food, well, let's go back to the table. Oh, Paula, you remember the table. When this size table is brought out into that corral,
I agree.
and they put stools on either side and proceed to eat lunch inside the corral,
Okay.
that is over and beyond what is normal. Not only is that, I think, terribly disrespectful of the people around you because you can't get to the voters coming in to hand them paraphernalia, but it downgrades the one thing that we have the freedom of is casting our ballot, our vote. Show respect. If you want to eat, set that table up out there. Go out there in the grass. Go over here. Don't set it up in the corral that's meant for electioneering. That's I just think it's terrible.
I understand and I agree. If I were walking up to vote and I saw a bunch of Republicans sitting at a
Yeah.
table eating this gooey meal,
Yeah.
I might be much more inclined to vote Democrat. I think that's on the people doing it and they shouldn't be doing it. I agree. I'm just not sure that's something that should be legislated because if I come and I'm just going to spend all day and I bring a little sandwich and I'm going to go off and sit in my little chair and eat my sandwich by myself, how's that different than eating my naps?
It's happened for years, but there's no policy for it.
Okay.
So what do you do when you say, what are you doing with a big table and
And
stools
I'll also
out here?
say, your party has been wonderful at bringing biscuits for everybody to
Yeah.
eat. They have. And sharing with everybody. I've eaten a lot of your biscuits. So we can't do that anymore?
Well, that's only the right thing to do. And I understand that happens. Hot chocolate when it's cold, they're good about doing that. Reese loves to do that. But there needs to be some kind of policy for decorum. I'm sorry I keep saying that, but I was appalled at some of the things that happened at the last election. And like I said at the podium, it wasn't all your party.
I know. And I just think it should be something in there about being respectful but just saying no food, I think is going too far.
Well, your opinion of respectful and mine may be totally different.
I'm agreeing we don't want to be sitting there eating a meal at a big table and so forth, but
It
I should be
happens.
able to bring, I know, but I should be able to bring a sandwich.
Can we move on to the,
Okay. Animals, honestly, we've had some discussion. I'm guilty. My dog, Lupa, used to come and campaign with her. She did it for William. She did it for me. There are a lot of people who are phobic of dogs. Some of them may be in the corral. Some of them may be coming up. I have no problem personally saying no pets in, you know, if at least no live pets. I might bring my stuffed donkey. That'll be different. Signs, I got a little confused. We have to have them no more than 36 hours prior to opening and 36 hours after we have to remove them. But somewhere it says that we can't leave them overnight. So we can leave them 3 days ahead and 3 days after, but not leave them overnight. That's confusing to me. I don't care. I'll pull them up if I have to.
That was a
I'd like to
suggestion.
make a comment on that if I may. The 36 hours is for putting out the signs all over a polling place and then taking them out. This is not just dealing with the electioneering area. You basically don't have signs in there
Yeah, we
other
do.
than what you hand out.
No, we always have signs up.
Yeah.
And they're all lined up in the back.
then
The thing that you're,
Or sometimes we hold them up instead of, you know, whatever.
the thing that you're referring to about taking signs up, not leaving them overnight, was a suggestion from one of our groups. I don't know which committee had that, but it was a
And that's not
suggestion.
in this
The 36-hour
PM.
thing, before and after,
Yeah.
is statutory.
Yeah, that's fine. It's just that if we can have it there 3 days ahead and 3 days after, why can't we have it overnight?
And if I could comment on mine and Nelson's discussion was, everybody has stacks of cards and stacks of things they're gonna hand out and what have you. And when it's time to go home, they leave. And they leave it laying on the table.
I don't.
And that was the address that they need to be taken each night.
Well, I
This
wouldn't
chair's
think anybody
not-
would leave cards and
Well, they do.
things anyway. Do
Pardon?
the people electioneering, I've never seen them leave anything other than their signs.
Well, I have, especially when they were gonna be there 2-3 days, they're gonna, why take all this stuff home, I'll just leave it here. But that's the cleanup process that we were looking at.
Madam Chairman, was this, I think I read before that this was referring to when we go into the corral early, we put up signs inside the corral at the very back, and it's first come, first served. If you get it first, then you got it all the time. So I think that was what, am I understanding that correctly? That when we leave, we take that sign out?
So that you have to come earlier the next day to get your spot. I mean,
Not my idea, I'm sorry.
oh, come on.
That is the ideal situation. At the end of the day, take all of your stuff. However, the statute says you have 36 hours before, 36 hours after. So
Not a problem.
But it specifically says political signs. It
Yeah,
doesn't
it
say
doesn't
cards
say
or
cards or
anything
anything. It
else.
says
It just
signs.
says signs. So,
Whenever we have checked on that, it's always been, we get complaints from the locations, from our church, for example. When are those people gonna ever come and take up their signs? And
After
they
the
don't-
election.
You know, they're good about putting them out, but they're not good about taking them up.
Right.
And, well, I shouldn't do that. We take them down and they disappear.
in a little room.
Parking, absolutely agree that those of us in the fence should not be taking spaces that voters need. That'll vary, as you all mentioned, depending on what site you're at, on how critical it is. Here, I mean, we just stand there and wait for the accidents to happen when they back off.
Oh.
It's horrible here, horrible. But, and there's always a couple of accidents. So for the safety of my car, I park it way over. But yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, some of the places, we just need to be respectful to keep places open. So I have no problem with that. I really like P10. Some of the precincts have been very good about recycling stuff and bringing it back to us. It saves money, it recycles. I wish there were a little note that said, please don't put your gum in here, but you know. And of course, P11 is perfect. So that's Ann's opinion down on, and why I really wish, I mean, again, my main point is this discussion should have happened before you're ready to vote on it. To have gotten an input, and it should have been our whole party having the opportunity. Because frankly, there may be some more things that I haven't thought of.
Madam
One of them
Chairman?
would be to limit the number from a party in the poll.
And I wish that we could do that, give you a list of the people that are campaigning for whatever candidates, and I've asked for over a week, tell me who's coming. Well, we're not sure. We're thinking retired people are coming. So it's like herding cats. I don't really know, but I can tell you that the good behavior is a big one for me, and I have no power to go and to tell someone that they are being rude. We have candidates that there are some folks, we have a little nest of folks that are disagreeable. And unfortunately, this is within my own party. And because they don't agree with this particular candidate, whoever comes to campaign or electioneer for them, they make their life miserable. I can quote you what has laid on my heart since the last election, because we go to church with him. I went over to visit all the precincts to see who's having problems or if there's something they need or they're out of. And this poor gentleman wears braces on his legs, both of them. And he was dressed in black, and this was hot weather. And as I'm walking up towards the precinct, he's standing away from over here where the tent is and the chairs are and the cooler is, with sweat running down the side of his face. And he said, "Would you vote for my brother in Christ?" And I looked at him and I said, "You don't realize I go to church with you. I sit on the opposite side." And he said, "Would you stay with me? These people have been so mean to me." It still upsets me to think of how he was treated. He had no chair. He was out there in the sun with no cover, no one saying, "Would you like a bottle of water? Can I help you?" But because he was not a favorite, the candidate was not a favorite of them, they ostracized this man. Oddly enough, he is willing to come back and try it again. But I called that candidate on the phone and I said, "Stop what you are doing. You come right now and relieve him because of the way he's being treated." And that's what brought me 3 months ago, I think it was, to the Board of Elections to talk about this, because I see him every Sunday. And when you think about that happening, I can still visualize him standing there and telling me this. And it hurts to think that there's somebody that would treat a man wearing braces when he's out there trying to do something good for our election process, someone that he believed in. That's not right. It's not right. And I couldn't say, every one of y'all pack up and go home. But you can. You can. Well, the distribution of campaign literature, I have a little round table, and it's not 3 feet across, but I have a little round table I bring and allow people, you may have a drink or something, you need to sit it on the ground or put literature on. The only time that we would leave that is if I am 30 minutes gone and somebody is coming to take my place. If y'all have something that you want us to do with this literature that's organized even better, I'm willing to work on it. I understand you're not storing anything for either party. And like I said, the participants list, I wish I could get that for you. I do have name tags, hello, my name is, and I am more than happy to put a marker here with the the name tags, if you can identify those folks, but I want you to know that if you find someone of our party that is misbehaving, my number is listed. Paula knows how to reach me. I think most of you know how to reach me, and I will be here and try to reason with that person. Not everyone that comes is sanctioned by the Republican Party. They take it upon themselves, and as with every party, you have some on the edge. So we just do the best we can. It's not like you can say, I don't want you out there representing me. No, you have to allow that. But the tents, that was a big thing. You know, when it was raining, and Ann, you're exactly right. We've always shared a tent for years and years because Tina Cardwell said, if you put up that tent, you're going to share it. She didn't say you might share it. She said you will share it. So we shared it.
I think you did it because she said so. You invited me in anyway.
Well, I was not invited in under a tent when it was raining. So I had someone to bring me a tent to set it up for us to not get our papers and everything wet. So just a little clarity.
I'm
That, well, you
Where'd
weren't
my
here,
tent?
or you would have taken care of that. But the table, I do have a little table. I don't want to take up any more room than possible, but anybody is welcome to use it with any information that they have to put down there. After all, we're all Americans. We may be Republicans and we may be Democrats, but we want what's best for this country, whether we are out here voting or campaigning. We want what's best. The food, I understand about the biscuits and the hot chocolate. I just think it's, folks need to move away if they're actually eating a sandwich or chips or just
I
take a break.
agree with moving away. I just don't agree that we can ban food, but allow snacks.
So you like your biscuits?
Except you usually put meat in them,
That's
Yeah,
the
they
same.
and I don't eat meat.
Well, I think, just to add something to that, I don't want to come out here to vote and have somebody eating fried chicken and green beans and mashed potatoes while they're sitting in the buffer zone. Everybody's campaigning for somebody. I really probably don't have an issue with the sandwich. It's just a full-blown meal, I think, is not what we're.
But I think that's on me. If I come in with fried chicken or whatever, and I'm up in the line here, vote for me. I mean, they're not gonna vote for me. I mean, I'm sorry. We should coach our people that you don't go up in the line eating food. If you're gonna eat it discreetly, eat it in the back. And I think that's good behavior. That goes under good behavior.
It does, but it
I don't think we
actually,
need a separate food mandate.
it
Unless you're gonna define snack versus food.
you would think that it would be common sense. A lot of this, you would think it'd be common sense. But animals, we had 2 in the corral at one time with dog bed, water, feed bowl, and actually somebody stepped in the water bowl. So it's not conducive to what you're doing. Your mind is on, can I get my candidate's information in the hand of that voter? But I've got no problem taking up the signs that we put in the area behind where we're sitting. However, and parking, Ann is so right. We see it all the time, and say, please, don't come over that concrete edge. But thank you for salvaging the material that we have. It saves the candidate a lot of money, and I do like the fact that the chief judge, we can tell all parties that if you have an issue, to take that up with the chief judge. I think that wouldn't have happened that day if this gentleman had realized there was someone he could have gone to and had stopped what was happening to him. So that's my.
As a final comment, because you haven't cut us off yet, I've given you what I feel. I still would like some time for our party to process whatever your final. You are much more likely, based on what you're saying, that none of this can be law mandated. you have much higher probability of compliance if you allow, and I'm assuming the Libertarian Party hadn't been even aware of this at all, if you give us all a chance to go through, kind of like I did, and give our feedback before you come up with the final list.
Okay, I would like to read this part of the minutes. Member Cole stated that this issue was brought before the board at the last board meeting by Ms. Parnell, as well as others, that the board has had conversation which dictates that this is a big issue that could not be resolved in the meeting, and he suggested forming 2 committees with a Republican board member and a Democrat board member on each committee to research this issue and to compile recommendations to be discussed at the next board meeting. Now that's why, that was the reason I asked when you said we wanted to vote. I brought you back to that because I didn't see that. So in the next paragraph it says, Chair Wright asked Member Cole what it was that he wanted researched. Member Cole responded to research the issues that exist at the electioneer corral, such as intimidation, unauthorized pets, as well as comments that have been made regarding candidates and to candidates, as well as eating in the area. And all of this, this has been wholesome discussion. This discussion should have happened before we come together to take a vote. Chair is just recognizing that. Chair does not vote unless you have a tie. So I'm just saying, I like the wholesome discussion that we have had, but let me read the last statement that was on here. He stated that the issue, that's Member Cole, needed to be researched in a view of the state requirements and make recommendations for the county. Member Cole moved, second by Member Schoolfield, that Chair Wright make an appointment of 2 committees, each with a Republican and a Democrat, to research this issue and come back at the next meeting for discussion and hopefully a vote. And that's why I questioned, because it didn't say to vote on a policy. He said hopefully a vote, and I'm just, okay?
If I'm not mistaken, Madam Chair, the reason we referred to the minutes was because there was some question as to what Paulo, or the director, was supposed to do. And as I pointed out to you before you read that, there's nothing in the minutes, and there was nothing in our motion or discussion last time about sending anything to Paulo for approval or acceptance. This is an issue that was moved and acted upon because of a motion put before the board and passed by the board. So this is a board issue.
Okay, so it has already been compiled between the 2 of you. And from what I understood, I thought you guys were supposed to get together with her and compile your list of things.
We couldn't get together with her without violating the meetings law.
Not if you had 1 Republican and 1 Democrat from each committee to get together with
Which is what
her.
we did. We exchanged notes and we developed this list.
So where do we go from here? Are you ready for it?
Well, I just made one comment. As I said earlier, I've compared the 2, and it's amazing the similarity.
Yeah.
But one of them, I think we might have problems communicating, because in some cases we left some pretty gray areas that I think need to be spelled out, and then there's some that we ought to say are recommendations. Quite honestly, my concern was that we're under somewhat of a time constraint because we gotta implement it, whatever we do. In my mind, we were gonna have to implement it by the time we started the election, which is not necessarily the case. If we hadn't done anything, we would still leave it up to Paula and the chief judge which is really what we're gonna do anyways. We're just gonna give the chief judge the information and the parties. And I think, by the way, I agree with you. I think this has been a very healthy discussion to point out to all the participants that that is common area. That's area that we've got to respect and realize that it's a requirement that we have that, and that it does need to be done with respect. So that's my comment. I don't know that we have the time or the energy to try to get this done by the 19th. And so the question is, do we really need to do that, or should we do what we said, and that is sit down and go through this and work on the wording if we've got. The only issue I had in comparing this is that some of them we were saying that this is a recommendation. Some of them were saying this is the way it's going to be. And I disagree with my friend here that if we don't have the law approving it, we can't do it. If there's no law saying you can't do it or that you must do it, then we have freedom to run the election in our county the way we like to see it run and do it properly. And so I don't think everything has to be absolutely you can't do it or you must do it. I think there's some that would be optional.
Any other?
Well, I think your issue with it is the language, is that correct? How some of the things are written. We were looking at it from the perspective that we wanted it to be written in such a way that there were no legal connotations associated with our recommendation, and we wanted to present it in such a way that the reader or the person expected to carry out these things would be receptive to it. We're requesting that you conduct business in this manner. We're not requiring, but it all comes down to respect. I mean, you know, that's the whole issue. It comes down to respect. Respect for one another and behaving like adults.
And guess what? That could be one statement that will cover everything, all 11 and one of the others.
Exactly.
All of it. I mean,
So when you read this, I want you to be receptive to what I'm saying. Not that I'm shoving it down your throat. We wanted it to be written in such a way that people would receive it in the manner that it was intended. This is what we would like to see happen. We can't legislate it, but we are requesting that you adhere to these guidelines. There is no legislation for any of this.
Well, they can be sent on their way or call the sheriff's department if it gets serious enough.
But that's up to the chief judge and the party chair. And that is in our incident management statement.
And it might get to that point as we move forward with the election, not municipal. But politically, I've been out there and I've not seen a lot going on at the precincts because I normally go to every single one of them. And I ask, are you having any trouble? Is there any?
Can
Now,
share
I
one
was
with you?
here with the long table thing and I came out with Paula to ask the person to use a shorter table, and she refused. So what do you do when somebody refuses to take a shorter table?
Let me share with you the
So,
experience I
you
had.
know?
This was at Draper, at the Recreation Center, the old high school gymnasium.
And that was jam-packed.
And guess what? I was with the mayor of Eden, and he was riding me around to the various polls. We followed a police car in there. The policeman got out. They thought we had a convoy and a guard taken. Found out that they had been intimidating voters right outside the door there, and the police had to speak to them. So the consequences are, it happens, And you might not be a victim of it at a point in time, but I saw what was the result of a victim being, accosted and that kind of thing taking place. Just comment briefly on it. One of the things that I will share with you, while you say this, we have no law here to go by. What we got is a simple way of communicating with those people that are active in elections. And the consequences are, and I'll share this with you, this is the way many legislations start in the state of North Carolina. Having been there for 16 years, they start at one county and it moves to another county. But the fortunate part we've got is if we start it now, it'll be a lower turnout than come next November. And if we have any issues that we need to address and change, then we can do that in time for the next election. But I feel confident that this is going to assist a lot of people in a lot of polls, and how people, even, people on the same party don't appreciate the way another one operates, and shouting at people and using God's name in vain and stuff like that. So my thought process is that we move forward with it, and we will come back and redress it after this election, and it'll be a much smaller, and of course, the people that are doing the soliciting out there might not be as, well, you know what I'm talking about, like others are. But I think that it gives us an opportunity to look at it on a smaller scale for more dedicated pollsters and candidates. And when it comes to the general election, where some people get very hyper and they do things they wouldn't even do in the normal course of their life. So I hope we can proceed with it, and then, if we started right now, it would be here at the county, which that would not necessarily be good, but how soon could we start it and approve it here? And would it require us to change the date based on comments that you made, Madam Chair?
Change the date. Change the date.
Yeah.
I think that where we are at this point is that we need to decide whether the board will approve these 11 principles or recommendations and have the director submit these to each party and each candidate that we're aware of, that she's aware of, basically requesting that they join us in implementing these principles.
That's fine. Fine with me. I think it's so important right now when you're dealing with smaller numbers and smaller groups that you can at least see if we've made any mistakes in being able to do what we're doing and do it right come the new one.
Is that a second to my motion?
Huh?
Is that a second to my motion?
Yes.
So basically, you're saying this will be a test group?
Well, in essence, that's what it's
Yeah.
going to be.
Oh, sounds
I'd like for the chairman to re-quote that motion so I can understand it.
You better let the person that made the motion
No,
restate.
the one that said I seconded, let him make it.
That's
Because
right.
I've been talking.
Let him go back and and then you say second on it, so make Tom understand what
Help
we're
me,
doing.
help me. I heard
Help him.
3 points.
My 3 points.
3 points is we would take this, we would finalize it, but before it went into effect, we would cover it with the parties involved, all 3 parties.
No,
No, okay.
this is a committee report. We were sent out as committees and we were told to bring back something. This is a committee report. So my motion is that this report be approved and that as part of the implementation of this report, the director should notify each of the parties and candidates of which she's aware of, and ask that they participate with us in this process.
Yeah. So we're receiving the report. The director is going to get in touch with the parties. And is she getting input from them or just giving it to them? This is what the board, this is what the board, you're out of order right now. You're not, okay. So we want to receive your report and we move forward with.
If you want to break it into parts, that's fine. So if you need a motion to receive the report first, that's fine.
Okay, we can receive the report first. That's the motion that we need.
Second that.
Okay, it has been moved and properly second that we receive the report from the 2 committees. Is there any discussion? All in favor say
And we're voting on the consolidated, is that correct?
Yes.
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 Okay.
Any discussion?
I want to ask for clarification. Reading these 2, one of them says you must not, and the other one says not allowed.
I think this is the one that we
Right.
mainly looking at, but you looking at,
I'm looking at both. I'm looking at the same item, and some of them were saying not allowed, and some of them said,
We're voting on the
but we're voting on
consolidated.
the consolidated one is what I'm thinking, that's what I'm hearing.
okay.
Is this the consolidated one right here?
Says consolidated.
Yeah.
2
This is
pages.
the consolidated one right here, 2-page one is the consolidated one. So the one that you're looking at, Tom, probably, it says something different.
My point is, I think there needs to be some work done on some of the wording to make it clear. So
We
that's
have a
my,
motion and second on the floor.
Alright. And it's getting ready to die if I don't go on and carry it, right? And it's been moved and probably second, that we receive the report that has been given to us, a consolidated report from the 2 committees. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay.
no. Because we're listing it as a consolidated report, and I have not, I don't agree with all the wording, and that's what we're saying we're approving. We're not talking about the idea. We're talking about this specific wording, and I have some concerns about that.
Okay, so it seems like it was just one against,
One nay.
okay, one nay.
Yeah, there's 3
Okay,
to
now.
1. 3 to 1.
Right, so what's the,
3 to 1.
3. Did you vote?
no, I don't normally do it. I don't vote unless there's a tie.
That's not
So I don't
Robert's Rule of
normally-
Order. That's not Robert's Rule of Order.
Yes, it is.
It can be it can be for a particular group, but the chairman, unless it's specifically spelled out, the chairman has the right to vote just like anybody else. You remember?
But the chairman has not voted on anything,
Okay.
really, the whole time. You never heard me say aye. She's waiting on to break the tie if she has to. So we need to go back and look at that and adopt something different that we can do. But we're gonna do it now.
Yeah.
Okay, now, is there a second part? Is there a second?
Madam Chair, I think it's evident that, some wordsmithing could be done. And that be the case, I would recommend that the 2 gentlemen over here, a Republican and a Democrat, get together and talk about that and come back with us at a call meeting in the very near future within the time limit. What's our time limit?
Thursday.
How many days?
That's like tomorrow.
Thursday at 8 a.m. is when one-stop early voting begins.
No, I mean, for us to hold a meeting of
Oh,
to
we have to
approve
get 48 hours.
48 hours.
But you
Yeah.
can actually schedule that tonight.
So that would be Thursday.
Let me say this. I think Tom's objection is that he wants language which says you will do this or you will do that.
Or you can't do this, or you can't do that.
I think we can't
No,
do that.
well,
No, in some cases, we can say it's permitted, which we're not requiring it, but it could be done.
I suggest you take a look at the memo from the state board.
The number of them,
Yeah, the number memo, 12 pages.
and everything in that number memo is in this, pretty much.
Yeah,
Because I went through
That
and
was used as a
compared.
reference.
absolutely.
Yeah, I compared it.
And it's
I
a
think-
question as to whether we want to run the risk of being sued because the language we choose is inappropriate. It's not authorized by any statute. Or whether we want to say, okay, let's shoot for it, do everything, mandate this, mandate that. And again, I think that's not a risk we want to run.
We certainly don't need that.
well, there's two phrases that are used in most legislation, and thou shall or thou shall not. That's the two word phrases that,
But we're not
but
legislating.
we're not saying that
We're not legislating.
because we can't do it.
That's right.
So the second, I'm sorry, are we done?
Now, I'm waiting on your second if you're gonna do
The
this.
second part of this would be to have the director communicate with each of the parties and each candidate that her office is aware of, and communicate a copy of these principles with a cover letter, basically requesting that they participate with us in implementing these principles. Does that make sense?
And that doesn't mean make any changes, that means implement, helping us to
Implement,
implement. And they also need to be reminded that the number of the memo is something that we didn't do, that this does follow the number of memo, so that part needs to be shared with them as well.
Madam Chair, I think the discussion, and certainly I would leave open the opportunity for people to provide feedback as to any of these. And that, I think that's what Nelson was saying earlier, this gives us an opportunity with this municipal election coming up, gives us an opportunity to have a dry run at how effective and how well people will participate in this. So it's not a matter of saying, again, there's no mandate here,
Right.
but, and we invite you to participate with us.
Any changes that need to be made can be made before the general election.
Right.
Okay. All right, we have, all right, the second part, we have the motion. Now we're in the second, for that second part.
Second, oh, you go ahead, second. Make it by part.
I'll second it.
By
Okay, it
parts.
has
I'll
been
second
moved
that
and
motion.
properly second for what he just mentioned to us. If I heard. And I need to know if there's any further discussion.
I personally think that's a great idea, and I think that's what we had intended when we talked about this before, to get feedback before we finalized. But we finalized today,
Right.
this writing, the way this is worded. And so, I don't know what they're gonna do.
Well,
I reckon we can come back and change it.
That's what we'll find out.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. You have agreed to have Paula get in contact with the different parties and give them the consolidated committee report and ask for their blessings on it. I mean, that's my word, now, that's not what he said, but, so we can move on now to our next thing on our agenda, which is number 10, 2023 municipal elections preparations.
Madam
Okay.
Chair,
Yes, sir.
before we move to number 10, can I just thank them for their input? I think that has been most helpful.
Sincerely appreciate it.
Okay, Paul.
Okay, first thing is the logic and accuracy testing on the voting machines. We had precinct officials that came in to help with the accuracy and logic and accuracy testing on the voting machines, and that took place on Tuesday, October the 3rd. We had 10 precinct officials and 2 maintenance staff that helped with that process. It was very different, I will say that, but all the machines did finally pass everything. Everything was good, but with new machines, trying to get the precinct officials acclimated to the new machines, it was good that they got to see how they're tested, because they see how they're set up. But it was a little confusing to them, but once they understood that, everything was better. But so the following day, maintenance and myself retested all of the ADA machines just to make sure everything was done correctly. And then on Thursday, October the 5th, we did hold the mock election with the State Board of Elections. Everything went well there. Chair Wright and Member Schofield were present during the mock election. I don't know if you want to add anything or not, but if you choose to, you're welcome to.
It was much more enlightening than the previous time. Previous time, I didn't know what we were doing.
It did take a while though.
It does.
Yeah.
We're pretty much at the State Board's mercy.
Right.
We have to wait. So, but I thought everything went well. All the numbers matched at the end. So our logic and accuracy testing, and then putting all the results in, and the triple checks that we do and the quadruple checks, everything checked out and everything balanced at the end, which is the ultimate goal. One-stop early voting will begin this Thursday, October the 19th, and run through Saturday, November the 4th. Early voting will be held here at the Board of Elections office only. The hours of operation are Monday through Friday from 8 to 5 p.m. It's 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then on Saturday, November the 4th, which is the only weekend that this office will be open, and that's the last Saturday before Election Day. And early voting will take place from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. on that last Saturday. Are there any questions on that? Election Day will be Tuesday, November the 7th. Polls will open at 6:30 a.m. and close at 7:30 p.m. Everyone that is in line at 7:30 p.m. will have the opportunity to vote. I've been asked a lot of questions about this. At 7:30, one of the precinct officials goes to the end of the line and starts writing the names in reverse order. So we know who the last person is, because that's what I was asked. How do you know I didn't get here at 7:30? That's how we know. The precinct official actually goes to the end of the line at 7:30 and starts writing names. So we have that list as they're coming in, and we're checking them off if there is a line at 7:30. So I just wanted to make that clear for the record in case any of the public or any of the board members wanted to know how that was determined. That's how it's determined during any election. County canvass will take place on Friday, November the 17th at 11 o'clock a.m. here at the Board of Elections office. So are there any questions on any of that information? Okay. Do you want me to move on?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the next item number 11 is Director's Update. The first item, election day compliance check sheets. I actually have those for the board members tonight. If any of you know which voting place you would like to check and make sure that everything is in compliance, I have those for you. We have all 9 precinct sites and the one-stop early voting site, which is here. And you can let me know after the meeting which ones you would like to have. Any questions on that? It's the same check sheets that you usually do. You're checking the parking spaces, how many handicaps, and that everything is out in the open and on display for the election that's supposed to be there. All right, the next thing is the events and speaking engagements. On Tuesday, September the 19th, as most of you know, that was National Voter Registration Day, and the Board of Elections was set up at the Rockingham County Libraries to register individuals. We had a precinct official at all 4 of the libraries in Rockingham County, and very grateful that we had those precinct officials there. We did not get any new registrations, but we did have a presence. A lot of them were thanked for being there. They were very courteous and said, I've already registered. I can't vote during this election. It was different things like that. But I want to thank those precinct officials for taking time for doing that for us. And those precinct officials were Brett Hart, Joyce Webster, Stacy Joyce, and Cindy Hayworth that were set up at all 4 of the libraries. On Saturday, October the 21st, from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., the Fall into Madison event will take place, and the Board of Elections will have a tent set up there, and precinct officials Jenny Sharp and Melanie Harrington will be representing the Board of Elections on that day. So, are there any questions on the speaking events? That's the only one we have scheduled right now because the election is our priority. We have to make sure that's done first. Next thing is the Senate Bill 747 and Senate Bill 749. Both of these Senate bills were vetoed by the governor, and they have been overridden and have passed as of October the 10th. At your seats, I've included both of the last copies that were voted on October the 10th. And according to the state board, these new laws will take place on January the 1st of 2024. In 749, just so you know what is going on, the state board will be appointed by the 4 leaders of the General Assembly. There will be 8 members on the state board, and those 8 members will decide on the chair as well as an executive director. They should be in place by January 10th. If not, the President Pro Tem will make the decisions on that. The county boards will consist of 4 members. Recommendations can be given by the parties, but this was stressed and wanted it to be stressed in our meetings that the leaders, the General Assembly leaders, are not bound to those recommendations. The chair will be chosen from the 4 members. I will tell you also, they said that lawsuits have been filed on Senate Bill 747, which has a lot to do with the election and how it takes place. There are rumors of lawsuits on Senate Bill 749, which is the makeup of the state board and the county boards. So, that's all I have.
So this board would, effective January the 1st, 2024, would go from 5 to 4.
5 to 4, and what I've also been told, and I'm only repeating what the state board says, it's a possibility that 4 members of this board may remain, or no members of this board may remain. It's entirely up to the General Assembly, and we do not have any input.
So there will be a fifth member who's the chair, is that correct?
No.
Not
It will
even,
be
even
8
numbers.
with the state board, so it will be an even number, 4 and 4. On the county board, there will be 4 members, 2 and 2. And they will be appointed by the Senate majority and minority leaders and the House majority and minority leaders. That's who makes the appointments for the state board and the county boards. So are there
How
any
did that
questions?
pass? How did that get passed?
Stupidity reigned.
I'm only repeating because I want you to know, and 747 session is now Session Law 2023-140. It's available online at NCLEG, or you can just Google Senate Bill 747. Session Law, well, Senate Bill 749 is Senate Law 2023-139, but you have both of those, and they are very lengthy. Anything that is drawn through is what has not been approved or was taken out.
May have been there from the start.
It was
no
there.
longer there.
It's gonna look like the US House right now. That's what it's gonna be. Constant, you know.
But that's all I have.
So how do you break a tie?
Shoot one of them. That's about the only way.
There is an explanation on how to break a tie.
Really?
In there. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah,
Any questions for our director? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
That has been moved and properly second that we adjourn. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. We have adjourned at 7:12.